Hi, everybody. Welcome to Fellowship of the Golden Age. And we have a special episode today with Lee. And hey, Lee.
That too. Hello, everyone.
And we're going to be talking, discussing the recent conference, the Healing the Heart conference and the Healing the Heart of America. Um, from I can just say from, all the way from Australia and participating in the webinar and even just, the recordings that were happening during the night, it was huge, huge. Like, I can only imagine what it was like for you guys. So, just give us a little summary of the experience of what it was like to be there in the physical and all.
Well, it was my first in-person conference, and I think just meeting some of these people that I met for the first time in person, but I've been invoking with and kind of chatting with over the last 3, 4 years. Um, my heart was so full when I met them all, and I felt so much love just walking into the room. And I met Yulitha, Kim, and Ruth right off the bat, right when we got to the hotel, and so that was really wonderful. And as I told you earlier, Neptune, everyone in person looks 10 to 15 years younger. And
Yeah,
very
yeah.
glad seeing everyone in their little square boxes, right? And so it was amazing to meet everyone there, and especially to just look in people's eyes and
Mhm.
acknowledge, you know, the light that just came from every single person in that room. It was amazing. And it just, even reflecting back on it just fills me up because there were just
Mm,
so many very kind, loving people, and all of us, willing to take responsibility for ourselves,
yeah,
and
yeah.
our own hearts, and opening them up and being willing to look at ourselves so that we can, make that connection, just that connection with the I am presence, and allow it to flow through. And I think it was just amazing, some of the things that were talked about, that the ascended masters talked about, and how we close our heart chakra, and how we
Mm,
all close our heart chakra to a certain extent, and that the illusions that there are, and that there are 12 illusions particularly to overcome in the heart chakra. um, that was really interesting to me.
yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
because
Because Mother Mary sort of opened up with that, didn't she? Like just, giving us a far more in-depth explanation of the heart chakra. Like, there are actually the whole seven rays in there. It's not just a threefold flame as well. Like, because it makes sense because love is in everything, isn't it? And
yeah.
um, I even for me, just understanding that there's those 12 valves, those 12 petals to the heart chakra, I could feel mine um, opening up through the conference. And then, that would get going. And then I could actually just feel like, oh, it's shut down again. And then make the choice, open it up again. So, it was like not a battle, but just an experience of seeing what happens when the separate self steps in and then down the valve gets shut. And I didn't know exactly what illusion that valve was. I mean, I could see it in myself what my illusion was, but yeah,
Yeah.
like, yeah. And I don't know, like, could you physically feel that happening for yourself at all? Like the heart chakra opening, closing, or was it just open?
No, not while I was in the conference, not
Okay.
necessarily. During the conference, it was a very different experience than it was different, but yet it was the same as participating in the webinar. I will say that the conference, like Kim and just him and looking at him, how we do on the webinar, that translates in the energy of the ascended masters has always translated being in just in the webinar. But then the in-person conference, um, it's interesting because you don't really, or I didn't really hold on to anything. It just sort of came through, the words came and it just sort of played through my being. And then it was just being with everyone, and in the in between, a lot of it was just getting to know other people or
Yeah,
learning
yeah.
more about them. And I think a lot of us were really open to one another. And so I think
Mm,
the experience in the conference was, for me, I felt like I was open most of the time. I'm not saying all 12 petals or anything like that, but I just could feel like just that acceptance and that openness, um, within myself towards others and from others with and towards me. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
and then, even the breaks, I didn't necessarily talk about the dictations. The first dictation I really talked about was, when the whole conference was over, and it was talking about, Jesus's dictation.
Yeah, right.
And it was a good time. There were lots of
Yeah,
chuckles during that dictation.
yeah. Yeah, and I
And so,
know, like, I really felt like, particularly with Jesus's dictation and Shiva also, and also when we were doing, when we just went overboard with, well, not such a thing as overboard, but doing the violet flame decree as well. For the first time ever, I really felt like, this is what it is to be the broadcast station. Like, I just was like, I just allowed that message just to go. I just knew, well, just let it flow through me. I'm the amplifier here. Like, yeah,
it was definitely amplified in the conference. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it was just really loud, and it was just really like kind of had a ringing within it, and that's cool that you experienced that on the other side of the camera,
yeah.
because yeah, because that's
Well,
what
it
was.
just, there was no, this, it just, I recognized, like, there's no time and space. Like, there's no globe or anything. Like, I just knew that Jesus's voice, his challenge to Christians in the churches, was like, I knew it was going like direct to them. Like, like I just like shoop, boom, it's right there. And I could see, just like little light bulbs going off, here and there, of people just awakening or getting uncomfortable, one or the other. Like,
Yeah, yeah, it was funny because oh, what was it that he said? I can't think of the phrase that he said, but do you remember, like, when he said, something, damn something? What crossed my mind was like, oh, who left the teachings? Was just the comment that he made, like,
yeah.
you know, um, I mean, I don't know that anybody really did, but, like, might be shocked by that a little bit, but it was all amazing. And like, yeah, Shiva's dictation, I remember
Wow.
really, really loving that. But I felt most touched by Kathumi's dictation, and then Gautama.
Mm,
After Gautama
yeah.
spoke, I was just so touched. And I don't even know, I don't even remember what was said in the dictation. I just know how I
Well,
felt, and I haven't revisited it since being home.
yeah, and well, Gautama, like, because that one just was like, wow, it just summed up everything. But he was really bringing home about letting go of that personal self and letting go of the drama. Like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, he just brought that home, like, but in a really humorous way too. Like, yeah. And that little theme about the personal self, like, that just kept coming up again and again and again. They kept bringing us back to this self that takes it all so personally, like, just so self-centered. And that was coming up through a few of the masters.
In one of the discussions that I had, um, I think it was after the conference.
Hmm.
I was speaking with a gentleman, and he said to me about how you can actually see selves if you sit and center. You can actually see selves kind of like peeking out in each of the bodies, in the emotional body, the mental body, and the identity body. And for me, that was a whole new idea for me to actually look within the bodies for the selves that exist there. Like
Mm-hmm.
just kind of peeking out and then hiding and then peeking out and hiding. And it actually it just kind of gave me a little springboard to
Yeah, yeah.
search in a different way rather than just looking at all of these reactions all the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does make sense. I mean, it is sort of a flow, it's a process and everything of, how I find this sort of, yeah, I tune into that reaction. So, I feel that reaction. And then I think this time it was good because a self got brought up, which I think is beautiful, like, to heal during the conference. And, a very, very personal self, a self that feels rejected. And I've been working on this one for ages. And then I think was that exercise with the presence of love, and love asks you to you draw like a map of consciousness. That's the one.
Yeah.
And within that you sort of do those a couple of smaller circles, and you see, like, what uses up all of your consciousness, where is your attention going. Mine was very, very general, like, for me it's mostly, I just focus on spirituality, psychology, practical things, like. But then I noticed, oh, my consciousness was zoning in when love says, um, 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 yeah, look at like what or who is taking up your attention and see if that's causing you tension. And yeah, and that's when, like, it's the self, like, the self is sort of contracting. And I just saw this kind of strange discrepancy between, how I felt when I was open and flowing with love. And then when that self stepped in, it takes everything so personally. Like, I could just feel it like energetically shutting me down. So it was a good experience of just going in and out of it. Um, yeah, with the
Yeah,
exercise.
I,
And
I didn't do the exercise during the conference, but I did do it earlier today. Actually, I did it twice. And the second time, I mean, they're all similar things, right? And what I what I ended up drawing is like, these I had like 3 circles in there, right?
mhm.
But behind all the circles, that was the entire circle, was like the spiritual growth, working on my psychology, the ascended masters, and like that was the entire
Ah,
circle. But then I had these other circles on top, and of course, one circle is like a lot of familial situations, that I find myself in, or I
mhm.
put myself in, that
Yeah, yeah,
causes me a lot of tension. And I started questioning, well, why am I putting myself in these situations, right? Is it because I want to be I want to be part of bringing forth the solution or the resolution? But then why am I even putting myself in that situation when it causes this tension for me? And I've got lots of siblings, and so there's
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot right in there. But then another circle, it was like my thoughts related to all those familial situations, and my thoughts around all outer situations that occur in my day-to-day life, right? So like
Mhm.
this circle here, just like it had several circles around it, just getting kind of bigger and bigger and bigger. And I quickly realized that, like, oh my gosh, you know, I've got all this stuff, you know, that little hide and seek I was saying in each of the emotional, mental, and identity bodies. Boy, I'm doing a lot of hide and seek in the mental body. And so
yeah.
I could see all this going on, and it was just really neat because you know, I was just really surprised to have it right here. Yeah. Um, when you go back into your thoughts, then like in there, I start doubting why I maybe it's not even that though, it's real subtle doubt that would creep in. Um, you know, I mean, I can see where a while back I used to be a lot harder on myself and be like, oh, why'd you say that? Or why did you do that? Or something like that. But it's not even that. It's similar, but it's much more subtle. So there's still some work there for me to do.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
what I'm saying. And it's not entirely clear, but I was able to flesh some of this out into where I could see that it actually would close my heart when I was experiencing neutral awareness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's really in the mental body,
Yeah.
for me
Yeah.
at this time.
I've got a couple of responses to that, but I'll just sort of maybe just go to the Mother Mary gave us an exercise too, where we look at a key love relationship from our lives, and then we look at, you know, what the MO was in that. And the one that came to me was probably the most worst of all of them, relationships. And but what I saw was I was thinking the whole time what pulled me into that relationship, my MO was like trying to heal, trying to fix that other person like desperately. And and then when Mother Mary sort of got to the end of it and sort of said, you know, talked about feeling like, you know, your heart's been broken from that or whatever, I was kind of like, well, what does love have to do with that? And then I realized I was doing that because I was trying to give, you know, this healing to another person so that then they could give me love. Like it was a real, honestly, it was a quid pro quo. It was, and that's, you know, that's something that it's been playing out and it's sort of ebbing out bit by bit now. But yeah, just, you know, I'll give you this if you give me love. Like, you know, just desperately trying to control the outer world to get love.
Yep. And control. That's the big thing.
Mm.
Like the familial situations, you know, like for me. And you just froze up. You have a nice. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's sort of dropping in and out here too, but hopefully we're good enough.
Onward.
Onward we go. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So yeah, and I think also, you know, going back to the mind that you're talking about, you know, that when Paul the Venetian was giving his incredible, there was so much in it, his teaching, but he just sort of at one point, and I was listening to it with my earbuds in, walking along the beach, and he just sort of said, you know, it talked about like that mind, you know, that outer mind that is always thinking, and he goes, and he just said, you know, like, have a look at yourself now. Like, are you thinking about, what's he saying? And, am I understanding it? And I was like, oh my God. So, like, yes, my mind was totally like, trying to grasp it and trying to go, but I'll remember this and I'll remember that. And you know how you get to the end and like, you don't remember anything, but, but it's just an experience. But yeah, the linear mind was trying to grab it and put it into these boxes, like trying to capture light.
Well, and the same thing, like even just like with talking like this and recording it, right? Like I didn't re-listen to any dictations. I did Mother Mary, Shiva, Kathumi. I managed to listen to those since the conference, but I could see where there was a self that was trying to create this tension about, oh, well, you should re-listen to all these dictations before you talk to Neptune about your experience at the conference and blah, 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 and I'm just like, no. I'm not going there. I'm just gonna plug in and talk to her and let's see what happens. So this is really healing for me to allow myself to do that while you hit the record button,
Yeah, and I had to trust in that too, because I had exactly the same sort of initially, wanting like, oh my God, but how am I going to sort of, remember anything that we're going to discuss? And I just thought, look, I'm just going to grab a couple of impressions and I know that will be enough for us to flow. Like,
and I think it was Kathumi, I think, that said, when we are attacked, when we come to a natural planet and we close our hearts and we're protecting, we think that we're protecting our I am presence from these outer conditions, and that we can't let those outer conditions get to the I am presence. But then what happens is that we're thinking we have to protect ourselves from these outer conditions and that we have to protect the I am presence, but the I am presence doesn't experience these conditions the way that the conscious you experiences them. And then there was just that shift when he talked about, I think it was Kathumi, he talked about, instead of having the conscious you look down here at these outer situations, shift the focus to the I am presence. Do you remember that? Something about that?
Yeah.
And right in that moment, I remember like, oh, like that would sure make things a lot more smooth, instead of looking at all these outer things all the time here, I don't know. Anyway, I can't quite remember all the teaching, but I just remember that little shift there for a second, like, oh, instead of looking down here at all this, what if we shifted and looked to the I am presence?
Yeah, I know. I remember I was really blown away by that particular teaching too, but so much so that I just haven't been able to. I've listened to it twice now, maybe 3 times, and still got nothing. But now that you're saying that, just realizing that the ludicrous thing that these selves we create, we thinking we're going to be trying to protect the presence, like, because we're just come into such an illusion down here, and we are attacked to this point. It's kind of like, because our presence is like, it's the core of our being. Like, I suppose I can imagine that we did that, just because we just really didn't want to be hurt, so we've got to protect the presence. So there goes the heart chakra closing, and And now we just have the truth. We can see that's a complete illusion, that, no matter what, like, we might be attacked again, but it's not going to touch us really. Like, so
Yeah.
where's that focus going? Where are we putting our conscious you? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on the
When
attack or with the presence?
yeah, yeah, if we can identify with the presence instead of these outer selves.
Yeah. Yeah, and that same thing, like, where you're putting your attention, is that causing you tension? So, you know, if the tension's sort of down here with focusing on, what's going wrong or an attack or something, but that's causing tension because that's what the self is. I don't know, it's just like this layer of heaviness and everything. But yeah, all we do, it's just a shift in consciousness, and that tension can completely disappear. Um, and I'm thinking of when Paul the Venetian did his teaching. From my perspective, I felt like Paul was, you know how there's always sort of a certain experience from each teaching, whatever it might be. And with Paul, I felt like he was painting an energetic picture of love, like, just through his presence, and like, beyond the words. It was just like, I just felt like, when you sort of got to the end of it, and I could feel all of you guys, I could feel this all around the world and everything, but just all like, oh, like, and I could just see Paul standing back and looking like, oh, that is so beautiful. Like, what we had all painted, like this incredible energetic picture of love. Do you recall the experience with Paul?
I don't recall the dictation, but as you were talking about it, do you know what I was seeing in my mind? I was just seeing like the tip of a paintbrush, the brush just opening up one of those petals, just like
Yeah.
just gently, like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I saw as you were talking.
It was something like that. Yeah, it was something like that. And then Mother Mary, and she I think she gave two dictations, and there was the first one which was explaining, just this more practical explanation of the heart chakra, to really give us that grounding of, understanding. Like, I feel like that's what the masters are actually giving us lately. They're just giving some real sort of understanding of things, that, like, education in a way, like, this is
And the
actually how your
tools,
energy. Yeah.
tools to actually apply what we learn.
Mm. Yeah. Like,
Man, this is the
from the,
best school ever, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And it's the funny thing is like, I feel like I sort of remember all of this, like, as we're receiving this information, it's like, oh yeah, 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 I know this. Like, I don't know it, but like, I remember, because I think on a natural planet, this was natural understanding. Like, we didn't need to be told all of this because we could see it all. Like, we could see,
Yeah.
you know, we could see how the energy moves. We didn't have to plow through this density and through duality and everything. So, with learning about, that previous conference about, beginning to understand, like, how healing actually works, the flow through those higher bodies, being taken through, and just coming to a greater understanding of, like, oh, that's how we're doing this and everything. Like, just learning to just rise up through the four lower bodies. We were taught that again and again and again, and it's just such a natural thing, so that now, as we're beginning to really internalize these teachings, um, we're learning to be in command of our conscious you at last, like, where we're putting our attention. Yeah.
I remember Mother Mary saying about, on a natural planet, we were supported. You know, we were just experimenting. You know, there was no right or wrong, and there was just love in allowing everyone to experiment however they were going to experiment in their co-creation. And then, you know, when we came here with something that was very dear to us, whatever that was. I think she used the word precious. And, you know, that very precious thing that, you know, we identified with, that we brought with us to Earth. And then when we got to Earth, it was just dragged through the dirt, I think of mud, and put down. I think she said dirt though, but dragged through the dirt and put down and made to feel wrong. And I remember when she said that about bringing that precious thing with us, that it was like I could remember. I not specifically remember, but like, you know, like, and then
Yeah.
it was like I could remember like having something precious, and then like it just being stomped into the ground, and
Yeah.
then, you know, everything contracted, you know. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
releasing all that tension, you know, this process of releasing tension over all these lifetimes, you know, that we've been going through.
Yeah. And so that we can even get back, you know, like I feel like now, you know, I'm starting to see very clearly, like, you know, the illusion that I came to Earth with, you know, just honestly, like I think they took us through this again in this conference again, but just looking at, like, for me, I know it was honestly, like, you know, my experience on a natural planet was like, you know I reached, you know, to, and as they said, you know, we all of us have sort of, were great leaders on, well, I'll get rid of the word great, we were leaders on natural planets, and I
We
knew
had
that, you know,
attained the level of, we've
yeah,
attained
yeah,
a higher level maybe of
yeah,
wherever we were at, and we wanted more. We wanted more
yeah,
experience. I mean, we wanted more. So I
yeah,
mean, Earth gives us all that, right? To like
yeah.
experience.
But I know, you know, for myself and probably for a lot of others, like, I honestly, you know, my experience of being a leader was that, you know, my light and love inspires people, like, you know, to want to reach up for more. And that's without an ego. I'm not saying that with an ego,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
this is where the ego sort of, or something comes in, where I believe that would happen here. Like, I really believe, you know, we believed when we came down here onto Earth that, you know, everyone would be like, oh, of course, I don't want to suffer. I want to sort of, you know, be full of light. But yeah, and then it was just like douche, douche. And,
You know, I remember when I was a little girl sitting in our front yard by this huge pine tree, and I don't know who I was talking with. I I don't know. Um, and I mean, I wasn't sitting there with anyone. I was talking with someone myself, or maybe an ascended master. And I was saying, but if I could just help one person, it will all be worth it.
ah, wow,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I was probably like 10, something like that. And it was almost like I was trying to convince someone that just helping one person, that's enough. Everything, you know, it'll be worth it.
Wow, wow. My one was, I imagine being Superman, like, or Superwoman, like, yeah, just
Yeah.
saving the planet, being super, like a superhero. Um, yeah, it was about saving everybody and everything.
And I still find myself wanting to be a part of the solution in the outer situations. So I've
Yep,
still got some work to do, you know, and it's just mostly like it's all like within my family, and they are my greatest,
yeah,
the greatest beings to help me see all this.
Yeah, yeah. Like I look, I'm discovering like it just doesn't matter. Like, I will always attract in like, whoever, whatever, like, is going to mirror to me what, yeah, I need to see. They'll come. I'll find them. They'll find me. And so also, so then there was the other sort of element to the conference, which was about America and what you guys are facing. And I just sort of found it, a few of the masters sort of came to that and they were very deliberately like, as usual, being totally impartial, not taking a side or anything, just talking about things realistically. But I liked when Godfrey was telling the story of when he was George Washington. So for me, it was all a bit new because I don't know so much about, information that's come through older teachings. And I was kind of like, I liked how he said that when he was sitting there, and there was the Revolutionary War happening. And see, I didn't even know about the Revolutionary War. I knew about the Civil War, but so I, hopped onto Google. Oh, right, Revolutionary War, got it, and came back. And how when he tuned in and sort of, was looking for comfort during that, during the he was trying to, yeah, he was looking for comfort to get some relief from the despair. And then he got that impression that um that no matter what, everything was already moving through the different octaves. Like America was going to be independent no matter what. It was a done deal, whether or not it was going to be a bit slower if they didn't win the battle. But yeah, it was a done deal. And it's the same thing with where you guys are now too. Like no matter what, America's heading into the golden age. It's just a matter of how do you get there? Like, yeah, how was it sort of from your perspective? Like, did you feel like just totally chill with, all of it? Or because, you see so much of there's still so much of the story going on, about backing this or that presidential candidate or
Yeah, so I don't watch the news a whole lot.
mm,
I see it when my husband has it on. And I really don't buy into the whole narrative that's played out on the media. I guess it just doesn't seem that way to me. I don't know. I mean, I guess as far as like what's going on today, like get my news from the ascended masters at the conferences. And that's what I kind of look at, and focus on that. And yeah, I mean, I see some stuff, occurring, and sometimes I catch myself being like, what, they're still talking about this guy? I mean, what's there to talk about? Like
yeah,
I catch
yeah,
myself doing that sometimes, but other than that, I just kind of steer clear of all that.
yeah, yeah. Well, and
Well,
I
and
guess that's
I have a
mm,
friend who is really, she keeps up on everything. And so when we're driving somewhere together, she just kind of gives me the lowdown. And I'm like, oh, and that's about it. On the way to Chicago, I learned some things. Got some different little uprisings in the country.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I just sort of, it was just sort of, I guess, nice to just sort of hear that reality check of like, are you a real realist or a pessimist? And the reality check was like, it's okay. Like, it's all, no matter what, you're heading in that direction.
Mhm.
Um, Question is, how do you get there? I guess step by step, really.
one petal at a time, one petal of the heart chakra at a time, right? So,
Yeah, yeah,
because that's what Mother Mary said, was that, you know, we're in this situation because we have closed hearts. You know, we've shut down our hearts. And so, you know, if we do our work of opening our hearts, you know, those of us who are willing to take responsibility for having closed our hearts and
yeah,
reopening them, I mean, that's how we get there, right? And
yeah,
then
yeah,
a little bit at a time, you know, and when one person opens a little bit more of their heart, then that's when that light and that inspiration smacks someone else in the face, and you know, and then
yeah, yeah.
in a
Because like
little bit.
looking from afar from Australia, like people don't think the same way. You know, there's still a lot of illusion here, but people aren't thinking the same way. Like, you know, there's hearts open here that care about what's happening to people around the world. We care about
Yeah.
situations. No one really takes these I don't know, it's just a different mindset. It's a different mindset. So clearly, you know, there's more heart opening going on in this country. And I think the masters
Well,
pointed out in
yeah,
other
they
ones
did.
too.
They did
Mm,
point that out. They pointed out, you know, the other countries that have more heart, they care more, you know,
mm.
about the people, and you know, they don't let people go without health care.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's and and I guess it's hard to believe that that still goes on in a lot of
yeah.
places. The fact that war even continues to go on. And
And the interesting thing is like with the US, and the biggest thing that's sort of causing these heart valves to shut down for the nation, it's actually coming through religion. Like it's religion that causes this. It's the illusions that fallen beings um, are weaving into religion, and that's a worldwide thing. Like anywhere where there's a strong religious control, like you know where that crossover's kind of vague between church and state. Like yeah, there it's religion that's behind it all.
and you know, Jesus was really direct. Um,
Yes.
I don't remember exactly how he said it, um, but you know, those who feel that they are like a chosen people, and that all other people, you know, are going to go to hell. You know, I
Mm,
mean, that's a tough situation to be in. Um, you know, I have a really close friend that I grew up with, and she's a Jehovah's Witness, and she was a great dear friend. And I can see where she was maybe more open when we were younger. And she actually lives near me now. And we got together and we spoke. And I said, listen, I know you're involved in your religion. And so I am going to leave the ball in your court. I'm here. Reach out to me, you know, if you'd ever like to talk about anything. And I have reached out a couple times because a couple things have occurred, you know, personal things maybe in this person's life. And I just wanted to say, hey, I'm thinking about you. And then I usually get a letter in the mail that says, you know, if you'd like to join us, we'd like to invite you to our church, that type of thing. And
mm,
the thing of it is that then when I run into her out and about, I mean, it's like we just, it's like our hearts just open up when we're right there in person, and we
hmm.
can just talk, you know. But any other time, it just does not occur. And I mean, when I was growing up, my two best friends, one was involved in Jehovah's Witness religion, and the other and apostolic. And so they were my best friends growing up. And we always had these incredible conversations about life. And of course, we didn't really think of it that way, but it was conversations about spirituality in a way when we were younger. But, so wow, I didn't expect to share that, but
Yeah.
Jesus
Yeah.
was very direct in regarding
Yeah.
those predominant controlling religions.
Absolutely. And Shiva too did the shattering of that in the physical realm. Yeah, I recall when I was in my teens and I went to sort of a regular Anglican church for a while, but a friend invited me along to one of those ones where they do all the, and Jesus this and all of the healing and singing and stuff like that. And, I was probably only about 14 or 15 years old. And I just remember looking around at everyone and they're all jumping up and singing and, hey, praise Jesus. And I remember looking around and going, this is not real. Like, I wouldn't stand up with anyone else. Like, I just realized that it was like a collective energy. I didn't see people individually doing that. I just got this sense like, they're all doing it because it's just this big collective energy that's making them stand up. Like that's just what you do. You act ecstatic. You say these words and everything. And yeah, I just had a lovely stubborn sort of streak in myself. It was like, no, I'm not going to do what what anyone expects me to do.
Yeah, I remember when I was a little girl, I was part of a group called Awanas. I don't know if you guys have that in Australia, but like you would go there and play games and you'd read Bible verses and memorize them. That's where I learned John 3:16. But at the end of the evening, every single night, and this we would meet once a week. I think it was during the school year. Um, every night at the end of the night, they would ask us who hasn't been saved, who wants to be saved, and it just didn't feel right to me. And I'd sit there and just kind of
Yeah.
watch, because like I didn't walk up, I didn't say I want to be saved, or anything like that. But I enjoyed going and hanging out with all the kids and stuff, and there were all different religions there. I remember there were some girls that went to a Baptist church. I grew up in a Presbyterian church. Um, I, I don't know, but it was just when I think back on it now, I mean, every single week, you know, if you haven't been saved, now's your chance to walk forward and claim Jesus Christ as your Savior. And then there'd be that pressure among young kids, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what are you committing to? What are you opening yourself up to in that moment? I mean, as a kid, I mean, yeah, you might have an here's hoping everyone has that intuitive impulse, right? Like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
but,
Well, for me, I remember, as I'm reflecting back, it's just that I could feel there was no heart. Like it was just, they're just, reciting, saying Bible verses without heart. They're saying prayers without heart. They're having one man stand up there, and say everything. And there was no heart coming through. And for me, the spirituality, my spiritual experience was, like I could feel Jesus in my heart, and
yeah,
and I could feel the presence of God in everything, in nature, in other people. And so,
yes,
but I was just given the story, like, but this is the only place where spirituality exists, in this church and everything. And when I hit this key turning point when I was about 16 or 17, and I was feeling, disillusioned with the church. And I said to my father, I just see, what will happen if I leave? And he just said, the church is always in you. It's wherever you go. So, and God is with you all the time. And so, yeah, that was just all I needed to know, that, because the illusion was that, the only place where God existed or spirituality existed was on a Sunday in the church and in fellowship. Whereas, just knowing that no matter how low I went after that point, because I descended very, very
Yeah.
dark places, but I knew God was with me all the time, no matter how bad it got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would when isn't there some saying or something, he is with me, and when I descend into the depths, he is also there. So
Mm.
he's there with you when everything's going well or fine. That's not exactly how it is, but I remember the first time that I heard it, I was just like,
Yeah.
yeah. I didn't have that experience, that type of experience growing up in the church that I grew up in. I actually, I I enjoyed listening to our preacher, and I actually would take our little bulletins home, and I would go and say, well, I'm going to look all this up. I'm going to look up the verses he referred to and just think back on this. And I did that for a little while. I think I was like maybe in 8th grade or something. And and then it didn't last long because I just couldn't quite understand what was being said, but I knew that I loved Jesus, that he loved me, and that's all that mattered. And he was with me everywhere, no matter where I went, just like you were saying.
Yeah. 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 And not like that bloody corpse hanging on a cross, like, Jesus is alive. Like,
Yeah, they had one of
yeah.
those up there behind the, I don't know what that's called, the whole little stage area. But I would sit in a place where I could look out into the fellowship hall, and I could look through this door, and there's this huge, beautiful picture of Jesus up there. And I'd just sit there in the pew, and I'd kind of look over there. There's my image, this kind, a very, a kind being. But now it's not even the images, it's just sensing his presence, and that's
Yes.
one of the
Yes.
things that's amazing, that we let go of, as we come to know the masters a little bit better, all these images that we grew up with. And that exercise, I think it was from the deep healing retreat, Mother Mary, when she said, what is the image that you have of me? And and I got to thinking about it, and how I saw her, and immediately this image that I had with me most of my life came to mind, and how I pictured her, right? This
Mm.
kind, nurturing, uh, which she is all those things,
Yeah.
but that's not, but the picture that I saw, and then it kind of had a little bit of a forlorn look to it, a little bit, and I was
Yeah.
just like, but that's not who she is, because like I feel her come in at night and hold me, because I ask her to hold me sometimes when I'm falling asleep, to hold me like she held the baby Jesus. And I know that feeling. And then at the end, it comes full circle, because, like, the way you look at me tells you a lot about how you look at yourself, and
Yes.
that idea of maybe me needing to be seen as a kind and nurturing person or whatever, and maybe not
Yeah.
someone that's going to blurt out, something that is in alignment with my truth at the moment.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like, the sheer limitations on having any image of who Mother Mary is or ourselves. Like, we
Yeah.
are anything, anywhere, anytime. Like, because that's the essence of more. Like, and maybe that's a good place to sort of close with that. When the presence of love says that, what is love? And love is constant, ever constant self transcendence. That's what
It's
love
life.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's life. Yeah, and what are separate selves, death, and it's life constantly transcending itself, love.
Yeah.
I'm
And if
so
and if I can say from, one human being to many other human beings that I feel such joy when whoever it is, when they express more of themselves, when they, let go of that illusion and they become more like just in whatever way it is. I just think, oh, yeah, it just like fills my heart with such profound joy. I love it.
I witnessed that at the conference with someone.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. From the very first moment I met her and, what she was speaking of at that time. And then, like, a day or two later, her heart just like opened up and she was expressing, who she is and accepting who she is. And she knew that she was accepted by everyone there. And I mean, I was so moved to just even to be sitting next to her and see this transcendence,
Mm, mm.
you know, in the physical, I guess. But I mean, it was amazing. It was so beautiful. So there, yeah. So the
Yeah.
in-person conference, yeah,
Oh,
that was
wow.
that was the highlight of the conference. Was this incredibly beautiful woman just accepting her her being. It was so
Yeah. And, may we all like, come to just do that to, open up the petals of our heart and let ourselves be more, just to inspire one another in our moreness.
yeah,
Moreness.
and accept more than and be accepting of that, wherever any of us are at any given time, like,
Yeah.
and that,
Yeah.
that's what that right there is what helps me to sit here with you, this time,
Yeah.
like when you emailed me, I was like, well, okay, sure,
Yeah.
like I'm sure
And
I'll
we
see.
and we have both through the course of talking now, we've both become more like, we just have allowed ourselves to flow and let go of, what should and shouldn't happen. And I feel it like, yeah.
Yeah, I just feel my my etheric arms just wrapping around you. That's
Woo! Okay, lovely. Well, I think we'll close off now. So, we open our hearts to everyone. You're all, you know, heart open and flowing. And thank you to everybody for participating in this experience of, heart opening that we've all shared in. So, deepest gratitude.
it was a joy. Thank you.